I was about to install a tool that I use very often for WordPress development, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to share with you how to use this tool. The installation is super simple. First, you need to have Docker Desktop installed and running, because this utility is going to use the Docker engine to set everything up for you with docker-compose files. And you don't need to know Docker in order to use this tool. It's going to do everything for you so you can focus on the development. This isn't the only one. 10updocker is not the only one. There's also ddev and a Lando. Lando, I don't believe is still available for the M1 Mac. Now, 10updocker is super useful for all systems. It is compatible in Windows, Mac, and Linux. I use it in Linux a lot and I love it. However, on the M1 Mac, you're going to have to do a little trick at the very end in order to get it running a little bit quicker. But we don't have to worry about that for now. So let's just open up the browser and just type 10updocker. Alright, so this is the repo for 10updocker. Just go to the installation steps. It's basically an npm command. So you're going to run npm install -g for global wplocaldocker. Now, I need to tell you this. I have had errors installing this utility with Node version 15 and Node version 16. I don't know why. It only works really well with the Node 14. So with NVM, which I showed you how to install in one of my older videos, if I type node -v, -v, sorry, I'm going to be using Node 14 to install it. I don't know why. Whenever I use a newer version of Node, it fails. Oh, I believe I already have it copied. Paste. Now remember, I'm using Node 14. If you have NVM, the Node version manager installed, you can easily switch versions, but this is the version that works best. Oh, and it also, for Linux, even though I'm using Linux, which is an x86 architecture, I am still having issues installing it with newer versions of Node, so you need to use 14. This utility is super awesome because it sets up a couple of containers. It sets up MySQL, PHPMYADMIN, PHPMYADMIN, nginx, Mailcatcher, and a DNS. It sets all of those containers up for you, and you don't even have to know Docker. Alright, so it looks like it's about to install. We need to use our sudo password. Awesome. It appears it finally installed. Now, it took 5 minutes and 18 seconds to install. I don't know what's going on. When I first started using this utility about a year ago, I was able to install this within a minute or two. So I don't know why it's taking 5 minutes. It's also taking this long on Linux as well, in my other laptop. Regardless, it's installed, and let's just clear everything out of the way. Now, this utility helps you initialize WordPress from scratch on your local machine so you can start development, but it also helps you set up existing websites. All you have to do is clone the database and you should be golden. So if we do docker ps, you can see we have no containers running. If we do ls, you should be able to see this directory wp-localdocker/sites. This is where all of your websites that you set up with 10updocker are going to live. Now, we do need to make a couple of changes for the M1 Mac. If you're on Linux or Windows, don't worry about this step. Just skip ahead. If we do -ls-a, we can see there's also another folder associated with 10updocker, .wplocaldocker. So if we see the into wplocaldocker, we do ls, cd into global, ls, you can see a docker compose file. So we're gonna open that with nano, and you're going to go down. This is only if you're on an M1 Mac, by the way. You need to column multiarch. I believe that is what we need to do. And then we need to change MySQL for MariaDB. Now, MariaDB is a fork of MySQL before the guy sold it, but MariaDB has an ARM version, which MySQL does not. So it's a drop-in. MariaDB is a drop-in replacement, and it works great. Yeah, I believe that's all we needed to do. Now for that, we need to hit Control O, enter, and then Control X. Awesome. So now let's go back home. Now if you wanted to make a website, once you had the Docker Compose files changes, all you need to do is 10updocker, create, and then the name of the site. In this case, we're going to do code fallacy. Now it's going to ask you, what's the host name? Usually 10updocker uses the .test convention, so we're going to do code fallacy.test. Are there any additional domains that your site should respond to? No, just one domain. Here we can use we can select the PHP version. We want to use 7.4. Yes, we would like 10updocker to download and install the WordPress. Yes. You are able to set up a single site, subdirectory multi-site, subdomain multi-site, and core development version. The only two I use is subdomain multi-site before, but that was for a client, and single site. We're just going to do single site. Site name, we can leave it as default. Admin username, admin is fine, and then password is going to be password. Admin email, we're going to leave it as default. Do you want to remove the default content? No, we want to initialize the site and have at least one thing, which is the hello world blog post. And here's another cool thing. This will set a proxy for you if you wanted to. So you don't have to download the uploads folder in WordPress, which contains all the media, the images, the videos. You know, that directory, that folder can get really heavy really quick depending on the size of your site. So what you can do is you can set up a proxy if the site is deployed, if you're recreating a deployed site, so that every time an image is requested, it goes and gets it from the original site. However, because we're not setting up a live site, no would be great, because you know this is going to be a site from scratch. Do you need Elasticsearch? No, we do not. And here is where the magic happens. It will do this all by itself. It will set up all the containers. And like I said, the only two things you had to do was change the MySQL image in the Docker Compose file to MariaDB and add the multi-arch to the 10up, what was it? The 10up DNS, I think. I don't know. Ooh, global services are running. Setting up MySQL, that's great. The database has been created and initialized. And it's starting to 10up Docker containers for this website. And the great thing about this utility is that once you have it set up, you can easily spin many sites and have them all be independent of one another. Now, because this sets up MariaDB, you can either access it through PHPMYADMIN, or you can do something cooler, which is use SQL Pro. And we're going to use SQL Pro. All right. Now remember, this is the M1 MacBook, so it needs to translate a bunch of things from x86 to ARM and then run them. Even though this is a very powerful CPU in terms of what it can do, it still takes a bit of time. Now if you see here, these are all the images the 10updocker has spun up, and all the ones with this tag are basically x86 architecture that needs to use Rosetta. Now we're not going to use PHPMYADMIN, but I do need to show you something. If you decide not to use another SQL manager and you wanted to go to PHPMYADMIN, you need to go to localhost. Oops, I forgot what it was already. So PHP is 8092. So if you decide not to use another database client or SQL client, in order to access the database of the site, you can go to localhost 8092 and it will bring up PHPMyAdmin. The username is just root. This is something they don't really tell you, and that's why I'm showing it to you. And the password is password. Don't save. And as you can see, it set the database up globally, but it also sets up our specific tables for our website. If you go to code fallacy test, okay, so the reason it asked me for a password is not because of PHPMyAdmin, but because it's trying to write to the host file. So yes, we're going to give it access. So now we have this local domain, codefallacy.test, that we can visit, and it will take us to our WordPress install, which is awesome. We have this, everything is working. Oh, I think I need to do HTTP, not HTTPS. Oh no, it's not working. See, this is the issue I have with the M1 MacBook. Even though all the containers are clearly running, something else needs to be done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disable PHPMyAdmin and global mail catchers, as I don't use those, and those are both taking up significant resources because they need to be translated. In order for you to stop all the containers, the command is 10updocker stop all. And it will stop every single container. Don't use the Docker desktop, just run it on the terminal and use 10updocker. So what I'm going to do is, do I have the code command? Yes, so I do have VS Code. All right. So we're gonna cd into the .wp local docker, cd into global, and we're going to open up VS Code here. So I never been able to run any of this with SSL certificates, but we don't care about that. We just care about this file right here. We're going to comment out PHPMyAdmin as we don't really need it, and Mailcatcher. Let me double check. Multiarch, yes. MariaDB, yes. And the DNS. Okay, so I believe that's it. So we're gonna hit Command S to save it, and let's try it again. Right, let's go back to home, cd into the wp/local docker files or local docker sites, and here's our site. So we can cd into that directory and then just type 10updocker start. Now that error occurred mostly because it takes forever to run all of those containers with Rosetta. And now that the resources have been freed up, we're able to access the site. Now that only happens on the M1 MacBook. If you leave all of those containers running, you're definitely going to run into errors. If we go back to the dashboard, you can now see that we have 2 less containers running, but those containers were using Rosetta, which were taking a lot of resources and throwing errors. Now that you have the site installed, this is just your basic WordPress theme. If you wanted to log into the admin dashboard, you go -admin, /wp-admin. Now, because you're going into a site that is requiring you to enter login credentials, you're going to be told, hey, you know, this doesn't have an SSL certificate, but don't worry, this is running locally, so don't worry, just accept the risk and continue. And the default username is admin and the password is password. And I know that doesn't seem secure, but this is just for local development. You can't access this site outside of this computer right now. And just like that, we have access to the dashboard. We can create a post. We can manage the media. We can manage pages. And it is reasonably fast, but it's not the quickest, right? In Linux, when I run a local WordPress install, it is a lot quicker. But remember, the M1 Mac is running Docker, and then that Docker is running containers that are not optimized for ARM yet. So if we go here, let's see the site once again. So if you wanted to start learning WordPress, this was a great opportunity. Like, for example, this is the theme, but you can go here and click activate this theme, and we're going to use this theme now. If you refresh the page, boom, brand new theme. Content remains the same. If you wanted to change your blog post, you can come here. Let's add a new post. Oh, this is using Gutenberg already. Nice. So for title, we're just going to type code fallacy. It's okay. He doesn't rock, he's just okay. And then here, we're just going to type, this is a test paragraph. And we're going to publish it. Yep, publish. And if we refresh here in the home page, boom, we now have a new blog post. Now 10updocker is awesome in the sense that not only does it set everything up for you so you don't have to worry about whether things are being forwarded through the right ports locally and a bunch of other nonsense, right? But you also have access to the WP CLI tool. In order to use it, all you have to do is type 10updocker and then WP, and now you have access to the WP CLI. So if you wanted to search, for example, for a domain, I mean, we just created WPDB search code fallacy. You know, this WP tool is super powerful, and look, it will tell you where it found code fallacy. So a very versatile tool. I used it a lot for work, and I thought it was a great idea to showcase it to you guys as to, you know, if you want to do WordPress development on the M1 Mac. Now, like I said, even though the M1 processor is super powerful because some of the Docker containers are running through emulation, it's not the quickest thing in the world. Now you have services that are global and you have services that are specific to your site. So if you were to create another site, these will run again and you'll be able to see the databases for this site and other sites. But remember, you have your global and then you have your site specific containers. And if you want to stop them all, you can stop them here, but it's more advisable to come to the terminal and just type 10updocker stop all. And just like that, it killed every single process. I know this was kind of a long video, but this utility is super awesome. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments and I'll help you out if I can.